Over the past week, Russian troops launched a series of strikes on enemy facilities on the territory of Ukraine. In the Dnipro region, in Pavlograd, the production factory of UAVs was hit. Russian drones hit a command and control center, barracks, and warehouses on the territory of the Uman airfield. 2 Ukrainian Su-27s and foreign-made radar stations were also damaged. In the AFU-occupied part of the DPR, Russian troops worked on the enemy's temporary deployment point in Kramatorsk. A strike was also carried out on a repair base for AFU heavy equipment on the territory of a former driving school. In turn, Ukrainian forces again launched more than 140 drones at Russia's rear regions. In the Moscow region, drones attacked 2 apartment buildings in Ramenskoye, killing a civilian. Another of the targets of enemy attacks was Olenya Air Base in Murmansk region, where the air defense system worked several times. None of the drones were able to reach the facility. All were successfully intercepted. As for the Kursk region, the counter-offensive of Russian troops began in the Koronevsky district. During the week, at least 10 settlements were liberated, including Snagost. In the Glushkovsky district, Ukrainian forces were able to establish control over the village of Novy Put. The presence of the AFU in the area of the Tetkino railroad station was also confirmed. In Sudzhansky district, Russian attack aircraft knocked Ukrainian formations out of several settlements. In Cherkaskoye Poreshnoye, the AFU held the defense on the northern outskirts, while Russian armed forces units take up positions in the forest belts on the approaches to the village. On the Slobozhanska direction, the enemy continued its attacks on the defensive lines of the Russian forces in Hlybok. During one of the attacks, the AFU managed to occupy the center of the village, but they were failed to gain a foothold. In the Kupiansk-Svatove direction, the Russian troops were advancing in the vicinity of Sinkivka, shifting the combat zone to the outskirts of Petropavlovka. The Russian troops also pressed the enemy north of Peshane in an effort to straighten the front line and reach the Oskol River. Local battles continued in the Lyman direction with the participation of unmanned aerial vehicles. In the area of Makiivka, the enemy strengthened its defenses in an attempt to prevent the expansion of the Russian troops' bridgehead on the right bank of the Jerebets River. In the Siversk direction, neither side attempted major attacks, limiting themselves to strikes. Several AFU positions were hit near Vyemka, which was liberated as early as September 1st. In the Artemivsk direction, Russian troops fought in the Novy and Oktyabrski neighborhoods in Chasiv Yar. To the north, the Russian troops advanced in Kalinivka, and to the south, they knocked the enemy out of the forest belts west of Klishchivka. On the Oleksandrivske Kalinovi direction, Russian troops have expanded their zone of control near the bakery complex in Dzerzhinsk. And in neighboring Kirovo, fighting is taking place on the western outskirts of the village, while in Druzhba, the northern part of the settlement is being cleared. Russian troops continued to expand their zone of control in several sections of the Pokrovsk direction. Despite enemy counterattacks and heavy counterfighting, the front steadily broke through. In the Donetsk direction, the Russian troops gradually completed the fighting for Ukrainsk, most of which has already been liberated. Significant successes were achieved in Krasnogorivka and its vicinity. The enemy was finally knocked out of the town, and fighting for Ostro began. On the Yuzhnodonetsk direction, Russian troops advanced in the vicinity of Pobeda and liberated Vodyanoye. Also, assault forces occupied the territory of the Yuzhnodonbaskaya No. 1 mine and began storming the facility of the same name, No. 3. there was a relative calm in the Vremivka direction, followed by localized fighting and airstrikes. Both sides did not take active actions and to all appearances were waiting for developments in the neighboring directions. To the west, in the Zaporizhzhia region, the situation also remains stable. Both sides are exchanging strikes and conducting reconnaissance. The enemy continues to build up forces in Primorske, despite problems in other directions. On the Kherson direction, fighting continued in the Dnipro Delta, where Russian troops gradually occupied the island zone. The enemy responded by increasing the intensity of shelling of populated areas on the left bank.